The metaverse presents varied investment opportunities, including NFTs, virtual real estate, and digital currencies tied to specific platforms. NFTs, or non-fungible tokens, represent ownership of digital art, collectibles, and gaming assets. In gaming, NFTs let users buy, sell, and trade unique items like avatars and skins, adding value through verifiable ownership and scarcity via blockchain. Virtual real estate is another avenue, with platforms like Decentraland and The Sandbox enabling users to purchase and develop digital land using cryptocurrencies. Investors can create virtual businesses, lease spaces, or host events. However, prices can be volatile, influenced by demand and platform popularity. Digital currencies such as mana and sand serve as native tokens within these platforms, rising in value with user growth. While they offer exposure to the metaverse's economic growth, they carry risks, including market volatility and regulatory uncertainties. Thorough research and diversification are essential for effectively navigating these evolving virtual investment opportunities.
So if you're just joining us, welcome back to Inspired Money, a live stream podcast. In a live stream podcast, anything can happen. You have a guest who isn't able to come. You have a guest who had to leave early, and then you have Philip who just popped in. I didn't know that you were going to be able to make it, Philip. But let me just say that Philip Rosedale is a visionary entrepreneur and the founder of Second Life, the groundbreaking virtual world that the virtual world that pioneered user-generated content in immersive digital communities. With a deep passion for the intersection of technology and human connection, Rosedale continues to explore innovative ways to create meaningful online experiences. Philip, you've been able to build a very successful community in the metaverse, and you're a business person, you're an entrepreneur. How do you think about monetizing? And for someone like me, how do I view this landscape ahead of me for investment opportunities?
Well, there's obviously, thanks for having me. Sorry I was late. Just wasn't able to get the message until halfway into this show.
Better late than never.
Good to be here. And hi, Nonny. Wonderful to see you. That's great. Monetization, there's a lot of stuff to be said. We could obviously take different pieces of it. One observation I would make at the outset is Second Life as a virtual world monetizes very well. Its revenue per user is very high. We don't do any advertising, so it's a subscription and fees-based service. And I think that's something that's really notable and important for everybody to be considering as we move forward beyond social media into virtual worlds and other systems. There's no need to monetize these systems through advertisements. And indeed, I think I'm not alone in this. I'm one of the many people who believes that advertisements, particularly on social media, combined with surveillance, have been very, very toxic and poisonous for the whole world. So we need to get off of doing it.
I just have to note that my career really started because of Second Life. So I'm always grateful for the work that Philip has done, the groundwork that Philip has laid for all of us.
Amen to that.
And your work has been world-changing as well, Nonny.
Thank you.
So, Nonny, can you talk about, like, from your perspective, you're telling stories in a more impactful way because of technology. But then do you view things like NFTs and, real estate in the metaverse? What are your thoughts on these things?
So, I think that like any digital good, which I know that Philip would have a very deep understanding of this, can have value. Any games that you buy digital good for, it can have value. But I think sometimes there was a little bit of confusion around how a digital good can enhance an experience versus a digital good as a trading card, right? And I think that there's a lot of interest initially of like, oh, wow, we've got trading cards like baseball cards. Well, I'm like, how many people in the world actually do baseball trading cards, right? I mean, yes, people have coin collections, whatever. But people who are getting experiences through the digital good or digital item, I think is something which creates a lot more value for folks, and you're going to have a larger audience participation and people interested. I think, we've established a pretty long time ago the experience economy was going to be the future of the way that money would roll. So that is my take. Like, an NFT might be great if it's, an enhancement to your experience. But, I don't think, the Bored Ape Yacht Club is all that of interest anymore, because that was sort of like a trading card that got built up like the tulip scandal in Amsterdam, versus what people do in Second Life is they provide you ways to enhance your experience. So that's kind of one of my big takes on the kind of value that you should be looking for if you want to invest in something that's going to hold for long term.
Yeah, so it's nuanced. Your thoughts, Aaron?
I think it's I mean, so I'll say a few things. NFTs are like PDFs. It's just a data standard. And it allows for interoperability of tokens, is primarily what it does, of a certain kind of token, a non-fungible token. Non-fungible token is a thing that is unique in its own right. And so that's what NFTs are. It's a data container you can put stuff in that is non-fungible. What they were supposed to enable was ownership of those digitally unique things. Now, whether those are valuable things intrinsically, whether they're valuable monetarily, whether they're valuable emotionally or personally, those are like different kinds of value that can be prescribed to them. But the concept was you could own something unique online. And Bitcoin solved this double spend problem. It was kind of one of the most fascinating innovations of our generation. The internet went from being a place where digital things were not scarce or ownable because you could simply copy and replicate them, to a system which, through technology and social consensus, could create genuine ownership of digital things online. That then got kind of ported to the content domain with NFTs. And so the idea was people spend time, money, emotions on these virtual experiences, virtual things. Why shouldn't they own them? Because they have value. And like I said, whether it's monetary value or emotional value or whatever. And so that was the promise. What actually happened was we got interoperable tokens, but we didn't get interoperable content that lived on top of those tokens. And therefore, the value of that ownership became somewhat less meaningful. As a piece of art, potentially, that's something that that lives in the digital space. That was kind of the trading game that Nonny was talking about earlier. And who's to say what art is worth or not worth? That's something that's kind of outside of my expertise to comment on. But certainly providing a mechanism for content to become more digital and more liquid in a trading environment occurred through that phase. I think what the next phase is touching what Nonny said, is how do you use that technology to make it a more meaningful experience and a more valuable experience for users? And that's where the technology can evolve to providing that layer of interoperability and ownership that means that the content I have is more valuable to me because I can take it with me. And if I want to, at some point, I can exchange it with someone else and they know they can take it with them. And that's really where our focus has been, is how do you create true ownership of content so that the value that comes with true ownership is real. And NFTs are a really basic building block of that. There's a whole bunch of stuff that has to go on top of that to make it true. And we were talking about earlier, this universal blueprint framework. One of the things it tried to do was capture all of the value of a 3D asset inside the NFT itself, as opposed to being a receipt to where that value might live in someone else's garage.
Philip, have you ever owned virtual real estate?
No, not in a speculative sense, but yes, you're right. Second Life has a ton of virtual real estate and $650 or $700 million a year in transactions going on, of which, yeah, a big part of those are for real estate. I think a distinction to be made with respect to NFTs and Second Life that is interesting and a little harder to see when you look more broadly at crypto is this distinction between gambling on things for speculative gains, which is, broadly what's happened with Bitcoin and Ethereum, as well as meme coins and in some cases NFTs, and then taking advantage
and
of
the whole stock market.
Yeah, right.
I mean, all investing is speculative. Like
Right.
if we didn't speculate, then it wouldn't be investing; it would just be buying.
Right. So we could use the broader expression investing to refer to that portion of purchase activity which is done with the intention that the thing you're buying is going to increase in value over time. Second Life, interestingly, is almost 100% comprised of transactions. As I said, it's like $700 million a year in transactions, which have no expectation of speculative gain. So it's an interesting distinction to make. I think a lot of the debate and discussion around crypto has been confused by the fact that to date, the only reason, I mean, I'm being overly a bit hyperbolic there, but the 99% reason why people make transactions in crypto is for the hope of speculative gain, whether on currency or on NFTs.
Well, I think going back to what Nonny was saying about adding value, what's interesting about looking at Second Life is that there's a whole industry taking place, not only in the metaverse, but in our world, right? There are people who are able to create things of value, and it's creating jobs.
Yeah, it's all part of the IP economy, in my view. It's like kind of where the technology that they're tied to and the economy that exists around them are kind of can be nuanced and varied, but essentially the trend is that more and more of the things that we value are digital things, and that trend is not going away. It's going to kind of keep accelerating as more and more of the time we spend is in digital experiences and spaces and applications. And so providing a mechanism for people to genuinely own that value is, I think, a really important thing as it becomes a substantial part of the economy and of people's lives, part of their social structures. All of those things tend towards wanting to give the power back to humans. And when you talk about earlier around the case for advertising and social media being destructive to society, I think that the idea of ownership of our digital selves in a more immersive space is an equally important topic, because if some other corporation owns my digital identity and the things I value, whether monetarily value or emotionally value, that's not a good outcome if we believe that the world is going to be a more immersive virtual space. And that is where I think this technology has really important and interesting properties, is to deliver on that notion of ownership of those things, whether they're monetarily valued or they're intrinsically or emotionally valued to end users. And I kind of always say, like, if the future of the metaverse is an open metaverse, then and you can deliver that in a meaningful experience to consumers, why would they choose anything else? Like, if the alternate is closed, why would you choose that versus open?
Thank you for that. Let's go to segment 3.